Before today's episode starts, I wanted to remind our listeners that the Unwanted Opinions podcast has recently partnered with FNX Fitness. FNX is committed to creating innovative supplements of the highest quality that provide focus for a productive morning, energy to thrive all day, performance supplements to reach new goals, unique sleep and recovery formulas to support any sport, and healthy supplements to support an active lifestyle. If you use the promo code FNXUOP at checkout, you get a whole 15% off your entire order. Again, that is FNXUOP. Check them out at fnxfit.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unwanted Opinions podcast. Jay and I are back here on a Tuesday, kind of middle of the day. Jay and I are both either shortened hours or working from home, so we're here to just talk about sports. There ain't a lot to do right now. We finally had some NFL draft stuff. If you heard our couple pods leading up to it, we did a few mocks. We talked about players. We had a guest on, talk about all this stuff. Jay and I love the draft. So what we're going to do today is kind of recap it. We're going to talk about some teams that we thought did really good. We'll talk about some teams that didn't do so well. The whole virtual draft as a whole. We'll talk about all that stuff. But Jay, how are you today, man?
Awesome. It
good?
Could not be nicer outside right
It's
now.
beautiful.
So it was nice working outside today.
Yeah.
For the first time in a while.
Because it's supposed to get some rain for the next 2 days, so got to get that mow in
probably
today.
Should mow. We mowed the other day, but it already grew back. I got a weed eat.
Yeah, because we got some rain a few days ago, so there you go.
Fuck being an adult.
And if you're feeding your lawn properly, then it grows back good.
Calm down.
Just saying. I ain't saying I'm like a true green master.
I'm about to be employed by True Green.
I'm actually just going to start my own company. Nick's Lawn Care.
It's a way to do it.
Is that cool?
No, because I was involved.
Will you hire me?
I didn't say I was the fucking owner. I just wanted to be involved.
No, will you hire me to mow your
do my
yard?
lawn?
Yeah.
No, because I can do that shit myself.
You're not lazy? that lazy to have somebody mow your yard. All right. Anyways, stop bullshitting right now. Let's talk about the virtual draft, how it all went down. We got some, I guess if you want to consider it live sports, we had them. I thought ESPN, NFL Network did a really good job. The one thing I will say is I just hate every time they draft a player, players drafted, they talk about the worst thing that's ever happened to this person. I mean,
we were kind of texting back and forth about that.
I mean, every single time somebody got drafted, I actually saw today that they're going to look into that next year about not putting that into every single player, because it's like this player's his whole family died when he was 5 years old in a fire, or his mom has cancer. Just everything that just kind of brings you down. And this is just a time where
it's supposed to be their moment.
These kids are being celebrated, being drafted. It's their lifelong dream. So I just hate that they do that. It's so annoying. But some of the memes are pretty funny about that. I can't lie. They were pretty good. But I like this whole virtual draft thing, man. I think they should do it like this forever.
I thought it was flawless.
I don't really care about the guy walking up and giving Goodell a hug on the stage. None of the players I really think really care that much. I think a lot of them liked being with their family and their friends, because that's who you don't really know. You don't know Roger Goodell. I mean, you're sitting there with your mom and your dad at the table and your agent maybe, but that's it. This way you can have more people at your house and just celebrate with them. So I think it's actually cool, and I think they should look into doing this more even when all this COVID stuff is gone.
And on top of that, sometimes the players that get invited don't always go in the first round, and it kind of brings them down, and nobody wants themselves to be seen on TV when they're expected to go in the first round. They're sliding in the draft to see their emotions and everything, when you'd rather just be at home hanging out and be told then. So I actually thought the draft was awesome. I loved the coverage. I thought it was, like I said, flawless. There was no mess ups in Wi-Fi or any interrupted connections that I knew about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like anybody's screen really cut out. I mean, you heard a few times where Trey Wingo was trying to ask a question and maybe it didn't get relayed in time to the person, but then, I mean, it was just a little bit of dead silence, and then he just kept talking.
But you see that shit all the time.
Yeah,
on
I mean, that happens
shows.
everywhere. It happens on live shows all the time, even like news, like ABC News or NBC or whatever, Fox, wherever you listen to, watch. It happens then. So that's just kind of human error. But
I started looking into more like how many teams are going to go forward drafting this way, as in they don't all have to be in the office, or how many teams are going to look at this and say, well, hell, we don't have to stay at the office until 12 midnight every night or 11 every night. We can do shit from home and be more comfortable and still get our work done and be more relaxed and kind of more of like that millennial mindset instead of old school. We have to be at the facilities until 11, 12 at night and then be right back there in the morning.
Yeah,
I think it just opened up more people's eyes on the ability to do things from home.
Just like how, just interviews I've listened to from coaches. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people know that we're Colts fans, so I listen to a lot of stuff that Chris Ballard and Frank Reich say, but Frank was talking about it to Peter King. He was like, I just let all my staff know that, hey, even though we're home, we're still working. But he's like, if you take your 30, 45-minute lunch break, enjoy it with your kids, your wife, if you're married, if you got a girlfriend or whatever, just enjoy time to hang out with them, but just know we're still getting our work done at the time. And I mean, you can just, or if you choose to do it later in the night, just still get your stuff done. And I think a thing you and I both were saying before this whole thing was, I think a lot of these teams were, I don't know if I'd want to put it this way, but I feel like they were more prepared than they normally were. I feel like they were more prepared for something to go wrong. So I think they might have done a little bit extra studying or just communicating in a way with the other guys, and they're saying, hey, because sometimes I feel like teams are scrambling, especially if somebody like jumps them in a trade to get maybe a guy they want, they just steal. They're like, oh shit, well, we're just going to go with this guy because he's the next on our board. I don't know. I just feel like I feel like the teams did a lot better drafting this year than they have in previous years.
And there were still trades, and not only were they more prepared, I think they drafted better. We were on here talking before, and I told you I graded every team's draft A, B, C, D, F. I only had 2 teams with a D or an F, which means I thought that 30 of the 32 were at least average or better than average drafting this year. And I actually had 22 of the 32 teams with a B or better, which meant for the first time, this is the first time I can remember me looking at so many different draft classes and thinking, this team actually did pretty damn good. This team filled a lot of their needs. This team did excellent. And usually it's not that case. And I feel like it's because people overthink the room, or, you have a lot of these pro days where numbers come up and they're like, oh, he ran a 4.32 at his pro day, I have to draft this guy higher. Whereas this year, they weren't allowed to bring in a bunch of the guys for formal interviews. They didn't have a bunch of pro days. So they strictly had to rely on watching these game films and footage and tape. And that's what they say, the eye in the sky never lies, because the tape always tells you what the player can be. And I feel like this year more than ever, teams just had to strictly rely on film. And if a bunch of these draft classes come out to be very, very good, obviously you can't tell within the first year. This is probably going to be, 4 or 5 years from now.
Exactly.
If people look at this draft class and see how well it was done, I believe a lot more people are going to go back to this, and you're going to start seeing a lot less scouts, a lot less coaches at pro days. Maybe pro days go away. Maybe they do this virtual stuff where they don't fly all the kids in face to face, because whatever they did this year seemed to work in my eyes.
I agree. And I think another thing is, like you said, where they might done more film study and whatnot. I also think that whoever it is, whether it's the GM or the owner or the director of player personnel, whoever's making the pick, this way they didn't have somebody in their ear the entire time saying, if this guy's on the board, you need to get him. If this guy's on the board, you need to get him. You have to get him. We can't pass this guy. Just shit like that, because they're all on this Zoom call and they don't want to have everybody talking at the exact same time, because then you can't hear anybody. So it's really more of the guy in charge. He maybe will ask one person, hey, if it's like your East Coast scout or your West Coast scout or something, what were your thoughts on this guy, blah, 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 and then he has his own thing, and then he's just not hearing 7 different things from somebody maybe. Depending on how those draft rooms get sometimes, you just don't have that extra noise in your ear being like, we got to take him. You just kind of go on your own thoughts.
I don't know if you saw before the draft, we'll get into Dallas's draft, I'm sure, but before the draft even happened, there was a thing that came out that said Jerry Jones basically said, look, leave me alone with this first pick. I'm going to do it. And it actually turned out to be a great, fantastic pick, getting CeeDee Lamb all the way down at like 17.
17, you get CeeDee Lamb. I thought he was the best receiver in the draft.
But my point was, if it were not under the circumstances is with the COVID, he probably would have had a lot of people in his ear trying to pull him a lot of different ways, and maybe CeeDee Lamb wouldn't have been the pick, when at the time that probably was the best pick they could have made, and it made fantastic sense. And he was able to just say, hey, no one's around me right now. I'm going to make this pick. Just leave me be, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, he was on his like $250 million yacht.
Yeah, that was, he's got.
You've seen the pictures of that thing?
Yes.
It's nuts, dude. I mean, hey, he's got the money, so
yeah,
might as well.
Agree.
But yeah, so that's our thoughts on the virtual. I don't know if you had anything else you
not
wanted
really,
to add
just that
on
it was.
Jay.
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was flawless.
Agreed.
I would not mind at all seeing it like that from here on out.
I think it
and
should
I think
be.
even the analysts enjoyed it. I've seen so many things where people, like some of the analysts were saying, like they were wearing shorts under their suits.
Daniel Jeremiah had just
because
shorts
you couldn't
on.
see their bottoms. Maybe they're wearing pajama bottoms. Like they were just relaxing, doing their own thing, having a good time. And I really think, all in all, it was a fantastic learning experience and just a fantastic experience from a viewer.
It was the most viewed draft in history.
I saw like 55
million total views for the 3 days.
Yeah.
That's insane, dude.
So,
people are just starving for something.
It was. I'm all for it. If they want to go that way from here on out, so be it. I would not have a problem with it whatsoever.
Yep, I liked it too.
The only thing that it's going to affect is the NFL is probably not going to do it because these cities make so much money when they come to town.
Will, like Nashville or Cleveland. I think
like
they're
supposed to be in Vegas this year. And
I think they're having it in Cleveland next year. I think I just saw that today. I think they're going back to Vegas in 2022, I believe. So, I mean, it is what it is, but I thought it was just fine, and I feel like they should keep doing it this way. But
one thing I did actually feel really bad about that I don't think got talked about enough was Todd McShay's whole job all year is to prepare for the draft and then so that he can have his moment and shine on TV for the draft. And he gets the coronavirus right before the draft and isn't able to get on.
I think it was him and his wife, I believe, both had it.
That sucks for him.
It was like the day before, the day of, or something, where he's like, "I won't be on on screen."
I didn't even know about it until Trey Wingo was on there and was like, "We just want to take a moment to."
I saw him tweet it out actually right before the draft, so I don't remember if it was the day before or the day of, but I remember I saw that on Twitter.
Anyway, let's get right into it. What do you want to start with first?
All right, let's start with some of the winners. I'll say I don't really have an order, I guess, of my 1, 2, 3 best draft, 4, whatever it is, but I really, really liked the Minnesota Vikings draft. When we did our offseason previews, or I guess you could call it an offseason preview, what we thought the team should do, I was a little worried about the Vikings because I thought they had lost a lot of players. They traded away Stephon Diggs. They lost Everson Griffin. They had, I don't know what Anthony Harris is going to be doing, things like that, but they filled a spot in the first round with Justin Jefferson, who I thought was an absolute stud. Probably would be my number 3 receiver. I think he is a little bit better than Henry Ruggs. I know he doesn't have the speed that Henry Ruggs does, but all-around player, I think he's a better receiver behind CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy. Then you get Jeff Gladney. I liked him as a corner. I think he's going to be good in what Mike Zimmer wants him to do. They got Ezra Cleveland in the second round also to just fill in, and he's the athletic tackle who's good in that zone run scheme. Some other guys, they got Troy Dye, the linebacker from Oregon, in the later rounds. I really like Kenny Willekes. They got him in the 7th round. I think he's going to be a really good player for them. So all in all, I just like what they did. They got a lot of depth and a lot of good players, and they had
a ton of picks.
15 total picks, I think it was.
It was a lot. They basically filled every hole that they had with somebody through this draft, which is awesome.
Picks. Yeah.
They took 3 corners, which because corners a big need for them right now after they basically let everybody go. I don't think you mentioned
Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes. They lost both of those guys. Yep. Yeah, so I just thought they filled a lot of needs, and I thought Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer did a really good job filling out their team. I really like Justin Jefferson.
Like you, I don't really have them ranked. Like I said, I had 7 teams that I had A draft grades on. Right off the bat, I think Arizona killed their draft.
I agree.
I think bypassing a tackle and taking maybe arguably one of the best, if not maybe the best all-around player in the draft in Isaiah Simmons, and then being able to get Josh Jones in the 3rd round, who some people actually, I wouldn't say some, majority of people had going in the 1st round.
Yes, a lot of people had him in like their top 50s.
And they were able to swing Isaiah Simmons and Josh Jones. I mean, what would you rather have? Isaiah Simmons and Josh Jones, or take any top tackle you want, and I don't know, Troy Dye in the third, someone like that. I mean,
give me what the Cardinals did. I thought the Cardinals nailed their first 2 picks, even though they didn't. I mean, if you even think about it, their second round pick, they turned it into DeAndre Hopkins. So if you want to even look at it that way,
include that. So out of this draft, they came with Isaiah Simmons, arguably the best overall prospect in the entire draft.
Mm-hmm.
They got DeAndre Hopkins, if not a top 3 receiver, he's easily a top 5 receiver in the NFL, maybe the best hands in the league. So you upgrade offensive tackle for your young quarterback in Kyler Murray with Josh Jones. Then you turn around in the 4th round and get 2 good defensive tackles. Fotu out of Utah, who I'm not super familiar with. I just know he's a big body. He fits that Utah standard. Strong. He's going to be more of a nose guard that just demands double teams and is a run stuffer. But I've liked Rashard Lawrence since he was a freshman at LSU.
Have.
And he's
you wanted
kind
the
of
Colts to draft him.
Yeah, he's kind of flown under the radar, and they got him in the 4th round. So I think that's great value for Rashard Lawrence. Then they get Evan Weaver out of Cal in the 6th round, who was, I think, in most people's minds, a top 10 linebacker in the class. And then Eno Benjamin, who I'm not huge on at running back, but
he had a better junior. He had a better 2018 than he did in 2019.
He is another running back just to go in that stable behind who the hell they just out of
Kenyon
Miami.
Drake, Chase Edmonds.
Yep.
Those 2 guys they've got there after they shipped away David Johnson. I agree with you. I like the Cardinals draft. I mean, I was really surprised when they passed on a tackle at 8, but with Isaiah Simmons still being there, their defense has sucked for years. And I mean, he's just a guy you instantly plug in
around.
And he makes your defense that much better.
So I think Arizona killed it, and I absolutely love what Arizona's done the past 2 years.
Yep.
Cliff Kingsbury's come in and the GM, and they had the balls to say, okay, Josh Rosen was drafted really high last year, but fuck it. I see Kyler Murray. I see what we can be with Kyler Murray. Let's move off of him. I think more teams need to be willing to move off of somebody if they're not sold on them to improve your franchise going forward, always trying to do what's best for the team. So what they've done the past 2 years, I'm floored by it. Arizona is going to be one of my favorite teams to watch this year.
I mean, I became a huge fan. It wasn't that we were not fans of Kyler Murray. We were just concerned about his size. But after last year with what they did, I don't really have any concerns about his size anymore.
Oh,
to be honest, he's got a laser rocket arm, dude.
Like
he's got
Josh
a cannon.
Jones,
yeah.
And he has all the weapons in the world now.
Yes.
You still got Larry Fitz. You bring in Hopkins. You still got Christian Kirk, and you drafted 2 other wide receivers at a fairly high rate last year, and Andy Isabella, who was a blazer,
who didn't even play,
and then Hakeem Butler, who was hurt before the season, who's a jump ball freak at like 6'5" and can jump out of a gym. So he has all the tools and weapons to play with. The only thing I wish they would have done was get a tight end, because I don't really like their tight end play.
No,
I forget
the
guy's name who came on down the end last year for him. He started coming on the last few weeks of the season, and I've read that they have really high hopes for him. So maybe they know they have their guy there, and I just don't really know about him yet. But
I told you the Cardinals are the 3rd best team in the division.
And I believe it now.
I think they're better than the Rams.
After this draft,
yeah,
I'm for it.
All right, let's move on to another one who I thought I really like this team. I think they're going to be a sleeper team in the AFC next year. I think they're the 2nd best team now in the AFC West is Denver.
Yep.
I love what the Broncos did. Get
Jerry Jeudy
they did
at the end of the year last year, and then now to follow it up with this draft classes.
You get KJ, and I'm not the biggest KJ Hamler fan, but I think in the middle of the 2nd round, I think that's a good spot for him, and I think Denver's a good place for him too. He just had a lot of drops at Penn State, so I thought it would have been a reach if somebody took him in the 1st round. But I mean, hey, you get a guy who apparently he didn't run his 40, but apparently he ran a 4.27. That's what everybody's saying that his 40 time was. So that would have been the same as Henry Ruggs. So if you get a guy with that sort of speed in the 2nd round, who I think broke Saquon Barkley's all-purpose yards record at Penn State as a freshman, that is, and then you get Lloyd Cushenberry in the 3rd round to play. Whether he's going to play center, guard, whatever it is. You're getting weapons for Drew Lock. You're protecting Drew Lock. You also brought in his tight end. He played with at Missouri. Albert, I'm not sure exactly how to say his last name.
Alberto.
So I'm not going to even try because I know I will butcher it terribly. But from a lot of things you hear about from former scouts and player personnel, what you do with your quarterback when they're a rookie, you get them some playing time, and then after that you see what they need, and then you put it around them. So John Elway is doing everything that he can to make Drew Lock succeed. He brought in Pat Shurmur to be the offensive coordinator, who's a way better offensive coordinator than he is a head coach. Then you get him weapons galore. You protect him. You still have a good defense because they stole Jarrell Casey away from the Titans for a 7th-round pick. They also got A.J. Boye, who's not that great anymore, but he's still a good player. And the corner from Iowa, again, I don't know how to say his last name either, so I'm not going to try. They get him in the 3rd round to plug him in and play. So I just really like what the Broncos are doing. I think they're a good team, and I would be surprised if they don't make the playoffs next year.
I think you see all those teams in the AFC West trying to mimic the Chiefs, and they're going to say, okay, maybe we can't stop you defensively because it doesn't seem like nobody can, but we're going to be able to put up points too. You go out, like you said, get a 4-2, 4-3 wide receiver and KJ Hamler to match that speed of Tyreek Hill. You still got Cortland Sutton. You drafted Jerry Jeudy, who ran 4.4 and arguably the best route runner to come out in 20 years. Then you draft, like you said, Albert O, who ran a 4.4 at the combine. Pair him with the tight end Noah Fant that ran a 4.4 last year. So you easily have the fastest tight end group in the NFL. You just added a dynamic KJ Hamler. You got Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, who became a star last year. You already have an okay offensive line that you're also helping upgrade with Cushenberry. They're doing and not to mention Phillip Lindsay, one of the fastest running backs in the league.
Melvin Gordon over the offseason. They brought in Graham Glasgow.
This offense is going to be able to put up some points this year if Locke can keep them going. This offense will be able to go as far as Locke can take them.
Absolutely.
So,
and I'm a big fan of Drew Lock. As you know, I was really high on him last year. He was my number 2 overall quarterback from the last year's draft class. And I mean, they went 4-1 in their last 5 games. So, man, it's a hard place to play in Denver. Man, it is. They have one of the best home field advantages in all of football. So, all right, give me your second team, Jay.
Baltimore. I think Baltimore, you could make the case, had the best draft out of any team in the NFL.
They killed it.
They didn't have very many needs to begin with. They ran the table last year as a team, and how they did it was by running the football and just playing phenomenal defense. So what do? Their one big positional need in the entire draft was probably inside linebacker, and they get maybe the best true middle linebacker in the entire draft all the way down at pick number 28, and Patrick Queen fell right into their lap, who looks like he could be the next Deion Jones right out of the same school. So he falls all the way down there. Then in the 2nd round, I get that Baltimore fans didn't think they needed a running back. Well, when you run the ball more than any team in the NFL, and that's what you're banking on, is to just be able to run the ball. And yes, I understand you have the dude from Alabama, Mark Ingram. And he's
getting a little older, though. I mean, he's got a lot of mileage on him. And like you said, as much as they run the ball,
Gus
get
Edwards,
more people in the backfield. J.K. Dobbins, I think he's a perfect player to go in that Ravens system, man. He's really good out of the backfield. He's a good pass blocker. Like I said, I thought he was the 2nd best running back in this draft behind Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, and you get him. He can run between the tackles. He can run outside the tackles, and he took a shit ton of snaps out of shotgun, which is what the Ravens like to do. So he's going to basically come in, fit seamlessly into this scheme. Then you get I'm not super familiar with Justin Madubuike out of A&M. I didn't watch too much film on him, but I also know that he was in a lot of consensus top 5 defensive tackles and a lot of the big name talent evaluator systems, and they got him all the way down in the 3rd round. I really liked Devin Duvernay coming out of Texas. I told you a while back he was one of those little slot receivers that I could see someone getting a steal on late, and he's basically a running back in a wide receiver's body who's fast. He's a track guy, so I see a lot of underneath shit to him where he's just going to take it and go far off of that zone read and play action that Baltimore's going to run. Getting Malik Harrison, who is he's a 240-something pound inside linebacker that could play strong side, weak side. Let's face it, Baltimore's biggest weakness defensively was their linebacking core, and they got 2 good ones
you should say.
Early. Yes. And then they get Tyree Phillips, who's a big mauler from Mississippi State, offensive tackle, who might switch into guard. You get another guard from Ben Bredeson. So you see exactly what they're trying to do. We're just going to keep lining up, running the ball. We're going to get maulers up front. We're going to keep bringing in running backs. Lamar Jackson's going to keep hitting you with the play action. We're going to have speed at receiver, and we're just going to have you come stop us because their defense was already set. Like I said, outside of linebacker, they have the best secondary in the NFL,
yeah, Earl
and they
Thomas
still had a fantastic defensive
Marcus
front.
Peters and Marlon Humphrey, and I mean, you just Chuck Clark, their other safety, they just gave a lot of money to, and Yeah, I mean, they just show they're doing what they're doing. The Ravens. I mean,
just
the
feel like
Ravens.
every year the Ravens get all the best value picks. It's
I
like,
swear
how
they
did that
do.
team fall to the Ravens again? How did the Ravens pick this guy in the third round?
There
It's
was
like
this
every
guy
year.
on Twitter. He's a Steelers fan. He was like, he said the Ravens do this to me every single year. He's like, they get players that I really like, and now he's like, I know that the Steelers aren't going to be able to tackle J.K. Dobbins. This is just how it's going to happen when we play him.
I love what the Ravens did. Like I
I
said,
did
they
too.
might have had the best draft out of all 32 teams in my eyes.
All right.
Give me one more winner because there's a few more, and I'll just once you give me another one, I'll just mention the couple that I had
Okay.
as an A.
I'm just gonna say if a one right here. I said this right before we started. The Jets typically have terrible drafts, and ever since Joe Douglas took over, I actually thought this was his first draft because it was so weird last year. They had an awful draft, and then their GM gets fired like right before the season started. And then there was all that. Then Sam Darnold got mono, so the Jets were like a shit show last year. Joe Douglas comes in. This is, like I said, this is his first draft, and I actually thought he had a lot of good. I taken Mekhi Becton at 11. You got to protect Sam Darnold. I mean, you took him at 3 overall. You trade away additional picks to go get this guy, protect your young asset. They were able to get Denzel Mims in the second round, who I think he might be a little bit of a project, but I mean, he's a tall receiver who runs in the 4.3s, so I think he can easily fit in with what Adam Gase wants to do. Ashton Davis out of Cal, they got him in the third round.
I wonder if they're going to play him at corner or slot, or if they're trying to prepare for next year if they don't re-sign Marcus
because you can
May,
play Jamal Adams a lot. They play Jamal Adams a lot down on the line of scrimmage. They use him like the Chargers use Derwin James. They line up a lot of linebacker. And Ashton Davis is a guy who just got hurt, so he wasn't able to do much in the combine, but he was a really good productive player at Cal. You get Zabari Zuniga from Florida, who just battled a lot of injuries this year, but when he was on the field, he was very productive. So I just was a fan of. They got Bryce Hall the way in the 5th round at corner just to get some depth there on defense. So I just want to give the Jets some props. Normally they suck, but I thought they had a good draft.
No, I like the Jets. The reason I had them as a B was because I wish they would have gotten more weapons.
And a B's fine. I think a B's
absolutely.
For what they normally or what they usually do. They'd have been in like the C and D range.
Yeah. I'm all for. I think the Jets had a really good. Not everybody can get an A. So when I have 22 teams or 15 teams that got a B, that's fantastic. That's a good draft for 15 of the 32 teams. So I like what the Jets did as well. A couple of we named of my A's, we named Arizona, Baltimore, Denver, and Minnesota. I also had Dallas, Indy, and the Rams listed as A's because I feel like they all had a lot of value picks and they all knew exactly what they wanted to get out of this draft and found great depth, and they found good players in the first, second, third, all the way through the draft. I just liked all 3 of their drafts.
Yeah, I mean, just to name a few players that I think we talked about. CeeDee Lamb going to Dallas at 17. Trayvon Diggs was there at 51.
They got Neville Gallimore.
I believe it was Neville Gallimore.
Round.
They got Tyler. I never can say his name correctly either. From Wisconsin, the center,
Biotish,
who's probably going to come in and start now because Travis Frederick retired. So I mean,
then they get Bradley Anae all the way in the 5th round, who a lot of people had as a top 50 player in this draft.
Yeah, I thought Denver did kill it, but Dallas, I thought Jerry, maybe that was a good for him to go just be alone in the draft. Maybe he'll start doing that from now on.
I agree.
Even though his son was the one that talked him out of drafting Johnny Manziel for Nick Martin. So
agreed.
Maybe he needs some of it sometimes.
I really like the Rams draft, being able to get Cam Akers because he's going to fill that Todd Gurley role. I think Cam Akers was very underrated coming out of Florida State, coming from a program that did absolutely nothing to help him. Mm-hmm. They've been irrelevant since he got there. He was the top. He was rated higher than Najee Harris coming out of high school. He was the number 1 back people forget about. And he's going to go to Florida State or go to the Rams, where last year I know they drafted Darrell Henderson, but I really think McVay is going to go back to when he first got there, spread the ball out. He got himself more weapons with Van Jefferson at wide receiver and Bryson Hopkins from Purdue at tight end. So he got themselves some weapons. They took a chance on Terrell Lewis out of Alabama, who has some knee problems. But when healthy, that dude is a solid pass rusher. He has all the physical traits and the tools coming out of Alabama. They got Terrell Burgess at safety. They got another safety in Jordan Fuller, who was a multi-time captain at Ohio State and one of the leaders on that defense. I just think they came away with a lot of playmakers at a lot of positions, and they really helped themselves. And then lastly, my A draft was the Colts, and I think
I loved the Colts. And we might be a little biased here, but I actually really like what they did outside of Jacob Eason.
I don't want to say biased because
if you know, I'm not the huge fan of Jacob Eason. I don't think he ever has any potential to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But like I told you, I said if we get a backup quarterback in the 4th round, that's fine.
Well, here's the thing that I tried telling you about this. It's such a low risk, high reward situation. Jacob Eason goes to a team where he's no doubt sitting the first year, which is exactly what he needed to do. If he would have got drafted in the 1st or 2nd round, he would have went to a team that expects him to play early, and he probably would have failed miserably. He comes in with maturity issues, and he needs to learn his playbooks a little bit better and learn where to go with the ball. What better team to go to than a team where you can sit? You can sit behind a future possible Hall of Famer.
I think Phillips a Hall of Famer, but
you can go learn from a head coach who's been to Super Bowls. He's played the position, super smart, and seems to be really good with quarterbacks. And then another great teammate and good quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. So you're sitting behind all these guys, learning what it takes to be a pro. You're not rushed into anything. You're probably more than likely going to have 2 years to sit and learn, which is going to be great for him. You have all the physical tools in the world. So you step in, let's say you step in year 3 and you're expected to be the guy and you just don't pan out. Okay, you whiffed on a 4th round pick.
That's what I'm saying. Like I said, if we get a backup in the 4th round, whatever. I'm fine with it.
But to nab Michael Pittman Jr. in the 2nd and Jonathan Taylor in the 2nd.
It's so weird. I literally texted you like right before the draft started. I said I really like Michael Pittman. And then about 5 minutes later, that's who the Colts take.
Yes, and he's perfect for them. I know Daniel Jeremiah comped him to Mike Williams before the draft even started, and Mike Williams was the receiver that Phillip Rivers had. And
he's like Phillip Rivers, Vincent Jackson.
Exactly. So he just gives him that big body opposite T.Y. because I think he's going to be so perfect beside T.Y. And a lot of people forget the Colts spent a high 2nd round pick on Paris Campbell last year, who was basically hurt all year. So they're expecting big things from him. So for Michael Pittman to be able to step in and be this go-to jump ball downfield receiver, I think is going to be great. And then to get my running back 1 late in the 2nd round, or I guess middle of the 2nd round.
I'd say it was pretty early. It was the 9th pick in the 2nd round.
To be able to get him, he can step in for that system. He comes from a Wisconsin program where he always had the good offensive line and they stacked the box and he still wasn't able to be stopped. The dude averaged 2,000 yards a year at Wisconsin. And now he goes to arguably the best offensive line in the game to a team where now they have to respect Phillip Rivers. They can't just stack the box against him. And he's going to be a 1-2 punch with Marlon Mack. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be fantastic this year as a split in carries, and then if the Colts choose to not re-sign Marlon Mack, he will be able to be the guy.
And like I told you, I was like, look what San Francisco did last year with great offensive line, 2-3 running back system. The Colts upgraded their pass rush, that's for sure, with the DeForest Buckner trade, as well as getting some guys back from injury. They added Julian Blackmon, the safety from Utah, who, had he not torn his ACL, he probably would have went a little higher because he was the 2nd-team All-American guy. He can play safety, he can play corner, you can move him all around. So I really loved the first 2 picks. And don't sleep on Danny Pinter either, guard from Ball State. He played tackle at Ball State, but he's probably going to transition to guard in the NFL. But, I mean, he's a guy who can come in if, say, I don't know, one of the guys gets hurt.
You can never have enough good offensive linemen.
Come in and be the 6th offensive lineman when you run a big package, which Frank Reich has done plenty of times over his year and a half or 2 years in Indy. So really liked what the Colts did there.
And
I think they got tougher too.
That Isaiah Rodgers, the corner they drafted out of UMass, did you know that was Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie's cousin?
I did not know that.
Yep.
What did you think before we move on to some losers? Where did you have the Dolphins? I know because it's the Dolphins. I actually thought the Dolphins had a pretty good
I had
draft.
them as a B.
Okay.
Yep, I had them as a B. I liked a lot of the things they did, but at the same time, I think they overdrafted some players, and let me pull up their draft.
I agree. I think they overdrafted Noah, the corner from Auburn. You're not going to try and say his name either.
Igbenogany.
There you go. Jay's out here with all the names today. But I thought they got Robert Hunt, Raekwon Davis, all good picks in the second round. I thought those were good players. They're Austin Jackson, who is what a lot of people are saying, a true left tackle. They don't have to worry about where he's going to play left or right. And I don't know if they're going to play Tua right away. I mean, he's got a chance to be able to sit behind Ryan Fitzpatrick if that's what they want to do. So I liked the Dolphins draft.
I gave them a B. I didn't hate it. I just thought where they picked certain players, I would have went in another direction with the players that were available on the board.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the fact that they got their quarterback. They got a tackle to protect him. They got another guard and Robert Hunt to protect him. And then my problem was they didn't really get him any weapons. Yes, I know that they have Preston Williams and they have Devontae Parker. I'm not.
They also
sold.
traded for Matt Breida. They traded for Matt Breida for a 5th-round pick from San
That's
Francisco.
why I didn't knock them for not taking a running back because they also signed Jordan Howard as well.
So I don't think they probably were going to go running back, but I feel like they need
and their slot receiver just
a good slot receiver.
They could have.
I feel like that's what they need.
Didn't go after either.
Agreed. I think they need a guy to get the ball out of his hands quick because that's what Tua's done for a lot of his career, is just get the ball out really quickly. So,
but being able to get a proven pass rusher like Curtis Weaver all the way down the 5th, that was a nice pick for him. Okay, I see they drafted Malcolm Perry in the 7th round, a wide receiver out of Navy, but that's not.
That's a guy you don't even know if he's going to make your roster.
Yeah.
But that's what that is.
Like I said, I didn't hate Miami's draft. I gave him a B.
All right, let's go to some of the teams that didn't have the greatest of drafts, if you want to call them the losers of the draft, winners, losers, whatever. I think we can all agree. I actually know this because right before we went on, we said the one team that we both thought was the worst, and that was the Packers. I just thought going into this draft, I actually didn't mind the Jordan Love pick at 26. I think he's a good player. You can have him sit for a while. I think he's got the potential to be a really good quarterback in the league. But this is the deepest receiver draft we may have ever seen. I mean, it might have been the greatest receiver draft of all time. And to not take one single receiver when I think if you watch football and you know anything, you could see that was the Packers' biggest deficiency in their offense last year was their lack of star power. If Devontae Adams was double, triple teamed, or he was hurt, because I think he was hurt for a few weeks, their offense was very stagnant. They had nobody to go to. Rodgers was kind of be like, damn, none of these guys are open. I don't know what to do. So he just held on to the ball forever. And then A.J. Dillon, I like A.J. Dillon, but not there. I thought they reached for him in the 2nd round. I just really don't understand what they were doing after that Jordan Love pick. I really don't. I don't know how to explain it.
I can say I understand the Jordan Love pick, but that doesn't mean I like it. I think the Packers are in win now mode. They went 13-3 last year, went all the way to the NFC Championship game, I do believe.
They did.
And you could see when they ran into San Francisco what their problem was. They couldn't throw the ball when they needed to. When San Francisco had that dominant defensive line and just took the running game away, they had nothing they could do passing the ball. And to me, when you're in that situation, your defense wasn't atrocious, but it wasn't great by any means. Clearly, you had some places you could upgrade on defense. But like you said, so many wide receivers in this draft, and you don't give Aaron Rodgers a single one. I would have spent my first 2 picks on wide receivers.
I would have too.
Just to have more weapons, maybe even a tight end. I don't know. Then the guy they get in the 3rd round, I've never even heard of out of Cincinnati at tight end.
Josiah Dugaria.
Picking A.J. Dillon in the 2nd round. Like you said, I like A.J. Dillon. I sent you the highlight where I said this might be the nastiest stiff arm I've ever seen. I like A.J. Dillon a lot. I think their head coach was in Tennessee, Matt LaFleur, when they had Derrick Henry, and now he sees Derrick Henry tearing it up, and he believes that that's what they're going to do in Green Bay now that they got A.J. Dillon. But it's like, dude, 1, he has never been a proven pass catcher. 2, both your running backs just had career years, and that's probably one of the best positions on your team. And you never address wide receiver.
I didn't understand it. Like you said, I liked the Jordan Love pick, but again, if it was me, I'd have went with somebody that can help my quarterback now because, I mean, we saw it all too well for years with, the Colts and forever not being able to supplant their. I think the Packers have wasted a lot of Aaron Rodgers' career. I think the Colts did similar things with Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning where they just didn't build the right team around him. They just don't.
And Aaron Rodgers is a grudge holder. It's not like he's super fucking pumped you just got his replacement. So I didn't understand any of these picks at all. I think the Packers fucked this up big
I agree.
time.
I don't think they got better for this year.
At all.
And if you are going to go try and still, I think their GM came out and said that they're still trying to win as many championships as they can with Aaron Rodgers in the next 3 to 4 years, whatever it is. But I mean, to not help him at all. And it's not like they went out and paid a lot of money for any free agent wide receivers. I mean, they brought in Funchess on like a 1-year minimum deal. So it's not like you brought in a bunch of guys to help him. You let Jimmy Graham walk. There's just no direction with what the Packers are trying to do offensively. I just don't like it.
Yeah, and like I said, I think Jordan Love needs to sit. So now you know for sure Aaron Rodgers is your starter, and you just pissed him off.
And I think that's good for Jordan Love to sit. But
I agree.
Again, I mean, it doesn't help Aaron Rodgers win right now. So
no, you're going into the season. You'd do anything to help Aaron Rodgers, and all you do is make him mad, and he's going to lash out at the organization. You know he likes those subtle jabs, that he's a grudge holder, that he can be a pain in the ass, and you didn't help that situation at all. So good luck, Packers.
Even if he says one thing about not wanting to mentor Jordan Love or something, the media is going to, as unfairly as it will be, the media will twist it into something terrible about Aaron Rodgers again. I can just see it now. I see Skip Bayless's dumbass on Undisputed saying how Aaron Rodgers is a terrible person, leader, all that. I hate when they have those stupid arguments on those talk shows or whatever. That's why I don't watch them anymore.
So since the Packers got my only F, let's stay in the NFC North and talk about my only team that got a D with the Bears.
Yep, they were bad.
I think they completely fucked up the draft as well.
Mm-hmm. Again, no direction. What are they doing?
Exactly. What is your identity? You already have 42 tight ends on the roster, and you go.
I think they actually had 44.
Yeah, you go spend your first pick in the second round because you don't have a first rounder since you got Khalil Mack, and you spend it on another tight end after you just let Trey Burton walk. Mm-hmm. So, granted, I like Cole Kmet.
Yeah,
I think he was the best tight end in the draft.
Agreed.
You had so many other needs, and you go after Cole Kmet with your first pick. I like the Jalen Johnson pick in the second round.
That's the only pick that they had that I liked because I thought Jalen Johnson was better in a lot of corners and went before him.
Yep. You had the chance to go after a Jalen Hurts as a backup quarterback to try and take over for Trubisky. You had the chance for, you don't like him, but a Jacob Eason in the third round to maybe take over for Trubisky. Mm-hmm. Hell, you could even go after someone like Jake Fromm and see if he's any better than Trubisky in like the 4th or 5th round and just take a chance. But yet you never do that. You're going to roll with fucking Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky, which is clearly your biggest ailment on offense. Mm-hmm. So you do nothing to address that. Your wide receivers aren't great. And again, in the best wide receiver class we've ever seen, you wait till the 5th round to go after a wide receiver.
A tiny receiver that'd be from Tulane. Yeah. Instead of drafting Cole Kmet, who, again, I like, there was plenty of receivers still on the board at that time.
Yep.
You could have gone with one of the good receivers to help out your young quarterback because, again, you really only have Allen Robinson. I mean, I think I don't know if they really like Anthony Miller, but I believe they just cut Taylor Gabriel. So you're a little thin at the wide receiver position. I
just don't know what they're doing.
I don't either. I mean, I think Ryan Pace just really overthinks himself. He thinks he's the smartest man in the room. I don't really know if he gets any input from anybody. I mean, I think you saw that when he traded to go get Trubisky. I know at the time you really liked him. I've never been a fan of Trubisky, but
yeah, but I'll admit when I'm wrong.
Oh, I know, and I'm not saying that you're still hanging on to this thing that Mitch can be a good quarterback.
A long time ago,
but I mean, there's no way that they pick up this dude's 5th-year option. So I just think the Bears are just their defense is so good that they won't be like a 5-11 team, maybe 7-9, 8-8 again, because their defense will keep them in games, and they might win games like 17-14 a lot of the times. But they're not better than the Packers. They're not better than the Vikings. They're almost pretty similar with the Lions. The Lions, I thought, had a decent draft. It was just okay, but I mean, I
would take the Lions over the Bears next year.
I'm just saying, depending on if Stafford plays the full year, I'll take the Lions as the better team as well.
Yep, I think Chicago finishes 4th in that division.
Yeah, I just don't know what the Bears are doing until they figure out that quarterback position. They're just kind of stuck.
Quickly, what are some other teams that you just were confused about? Like I was confused by New England's draft taking
Yeah.
Kyle Duggar so high and not going after any wide receivers or quarterbacks after last year.
I think they're just kind of gonna. I think they're gonna try and play in the free agency market or draft or trade for one of the quarterbacks as Cam or Andy Dalton or somebody. I think that's where they're gonna go. I mean, the Texans just didn't have a lot of picks, so they didn't really have that great of a draft. I like the Ross Blacklock pick in the second round, but other than that, I didn't really think they had that great of a draft. They just had the lack of picks, so that's just what Houston's going to be for the next few years. And then they just went and signed Laramie Tunsil. This has nothing to do with the draft, but they overpaid for the left tackle that they traded for last year. Like I was texting Levi, our buddy from who's the Dolphins fan. I said, "You guys stole from Houston because Laramie Tunsil's not worth that much money a year. I don't care."
No. I don't think the Chargers did take any offensive linemen whatsoever.
So they still got a question at left tackle, but
I think Tennessee reached on their offensive tackle.
Agreed.
They went running back in the third. They didn't go after any tight ends, no defensive ends, and then a defensive tackle in the fifth round after you're trying to replace Jarrell Casey. I didn't really like Tennessee's draft.
I think they got a good value.
Draft.
They got a good value with Christian Fulton in the second round. But other than that, I don't think. Yep, Washington's the one I have up right here. After Chase Young, I don't think they had a really good draft. I thought they reached on a lot of players.
I like the concept. I like that they were thinking offensive line and wide receivers to help my young quarterback. But the way the draft board fell, I really feel like they should have flopped those and taken offensive line first and then went after their wide receivers instead of getting the better receivers instead of the better offensive line. Pittsburgh, they didn't draft a quarterback or a tight end.
They were another team that didn't have much draft capital, so they were a team that didn't have the greatest pick. I thought they may have reached a little bit on Chase Claypool, but I
like him.
I think he's a good player, but I think there were some few other guys that were good that were better than him on the board at the time. I know you really like their Anthony McFarland pick from Maryland.
I do a lot.
You've been obsessed with that guy ever since he torched your Buckeyes.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be perfect for them because one, James Conner hasn't proven that he can stay healthy, and two, he's not the James Conner type back. I think he's a little more elusive. He's a little faster.
Yep.
They both can catch the ball, but I think he's going to come in more of like a third down back and a scat back and be able to catch the ball and take it. So I like how he complements James Conner, and I think he can definitely fill in the role as the full-time back if James Conner goes down.
Agreed. All right. Aside from teams, I would just want to ask you, this was a big kind of interesting thing. The Eagles taking Jalen Hurts in the second round. I've seen both sides of it where people like it, where people dislike it. I thought it was a good pick for him. I really did because we were texting about it when it happened. I was like, it's a little strange because maybe they could have gone something to help out Wentz a little bit more. But the fact that if they would have had a better quarterback play last year and Wentz could have maybe just survived until the divisional or the divisional round.
What's his name wasn't 48 years old.
Exactly. They probably would have beat Seattle last year in the wild card round had Wentz not got hurt or had it been somebody better. So if Jalen Hurts can come in and win you a few 2 or 3 games in a season, which it somehow I think it maybe need to be the case with Carson Wentz now, just because he hasn't proven he can stay healthy in any of his years in the league. So I didn't mind that. I thought a lot of people just blew that out of proportion.
I thought it was brilliant for both sides. I think it's great for the team and the player. One, I think they're so desperate to have a good backup quarterback because Wentz has proven time and time again he can't play all 16 games. He can't be there every time, so he gets hurt almost religiously. So
unfortunately,
you bring in someone like Jalen Hurts who you can sit. You can still have I think they look at the Saints and Taysom Hill, and they want to have special packages like that because I think Philly's pretty upbeat in the trends, and they like to think outside the box. So they see the Saints utilizing a weapon like Taysom Hill. They feel they can do that same thing with Jalen Hurts and bring up different packages for him. He can put points on the board. Like last year, I think Taysom Hill had like 7 touchdowns. I think they think Jalen Hurts could do something like that just by how they're going to diagram him some plays all at the same time while he's sitting, learning from Carson Wentz, learning from the head coach, Doug Peterson. I think they have a great, fantastic system there where they really know how to develop quarterbacks. So for 4 years, he's going to sit. Maybe Wentz, I'm knock on wood, I hope he doesn't. Maybe Wentz gets hurt bad and he comes in and plays a full season and shows other teams what he can do.
Himself.
Yeah, and then when he's released after his 4th year because they just can't pay him and Carson Wentz, he's had 4 years of sitting, 4 years of learning, game time, preparation, been involved in the play calling, knows how to be an NFL quarterback, and now 4 years later he can step up. I'm not saying he's going to be Aaron Rodgers, but he's had the tutelage like an Aaron Rodgers had, to where now he's fully capable and ready to step in and be a starter somewhere else. Whereas if he would have went early to a team that desperately needed a quarterback, like I mentioned earlier about Jacob Eason, and had to play right away, I don't think he would have been as successful. So I think it was a win-win for both, and I understand it completely from the Eagles side.
Yeah, agreed. I liked the pick. I thought, outside of that, like I said, maybe they could have went and got him some more help, but I liked what they got in Jalen Reagor in the first round. I think he was a guy who was a little undervalued on a lot of people's boards. I thought he's just a guy, you get him the ball in space, he can make a lot of shit happen. And, they still got some other guys. You still got Zach Ertz. If Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey are healthy, that's still a pretty good offense. Like I said, Miles Sanders, Dallas Goedert. So I think Philly's in good shape. Name me a guy who, I don't know, name me one of your just flat-out players that we might not have mentioned who's a winner from this draft, who you really liked where they went, what situation they got put in.
Fucking Zach Bond to New Orleans.
Yep, that's great. They got him in the third round.
How they got him in the third round, I don't know. It probably their biggest position of need to be able to get a player like him.
I think on the draft they said that he was trying to hit like a sort of a diluted sample because he was trying to weigh in a little heavier than what he was, so he was excessively drinking water or something like that because he was trying to weigh a little heavier.
Man, weigh in at 225. That's what linebackers nowadays are weighing in at.
I think they said something like that either before or after the draft. That's why they think he fell.
Anyway, he's one, and unfortunately, Tyler Johnson, the wide receiver from Minnesota, who I think is going to be a fantastic slot receiver, goes to Tampa Bay to play with Tom and give him a solid slot receiver that I think he'll utilize all the time. And he ended up in a pretty good position because he's probably never going to demand double teams when you got Mike Evans, Conley, Gronk, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate. He's just going to be that one-on-one matchup underneath that Tom is just going to love to throw to.
Yeah, I thought the Buccaneers actually had a pretty good draft. Getting Tristan Wirfs at 13, also getting Antoine Winfield Jr. in the second round. Again, like you said, Tyler Johnson, the wide receiver from Minnesota. So I thought they did pretty good on some of their picks, really. I don't know how Tyler Johnson fell to the fifth round. Again, it was just because this class was so loaded. And there were
Troutman went to the Saints as well, and the Saints kind of needed a second tight end. So he was up there on a lot of people's boards as one of the top tight ends coming in. So I think him going to New Orleans, it's a perfect place for him as well. So I think he'll have a lot of potential there.
Another top guy who fell quite a bit was A.J. Epinesa, the defensive end from Iowa, going to the Bills. I think that's a perfect spot for him. I think you put him in Sean McDermott's defensive line. He can move him around all over. He doesn't have to be the superstar pass rusher that a lot of teams maybe would have needed him to be if they took him in the first round to be their best pass rusher. But on that team, you don't need him to be that. So I thought A.J. Epinesa going there to Buffalo, again, just giving Sean McDermott more guys on the defensive side to play with because an already loaded good defense.
I think he went to the perfect position for him. I was on the fence whether I thought he'd succeed or not, and it was a lot of depending on where he went. And I think him going to Buffalo was magnificent for his career.
Agreed. What did you think about the Panthers? I liked their first three picks a lot.
I kind of loved what they did. I think their theory
they didn't draft a single offensive player.
Yeah, and I think reason being the new head coach and their offensive coordinator both believe we can make this offense run. This isn't a bad offense. We brought in Teddy Bridgewater. We still got McCaffrey. We got some weapons that they've drafted pretty high over the past couple of years. Still have a good offensive line. Our offense will be able to work with. Our problem's been our defense now that Kuechly's retired. We've lost some guys. So that's a major issue. And what they did is they said, fuck it. We're going literally all defense. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks and went all of them on defense. So getting Derek Brown, I thought it's a copycat league. You look at where the successful teams are, like San Francisco, how they dominate so many games with average quarterback play, average wide receivers. It's because their fronts on both sides of the ball are so good.
Are dominant.
I mentioned Carolina's already got the good front on offense, but their defense, they did draft Brian Burns last year out of Florida State, and he came on really well. Well, now they go and get arguably the best defensive tackle in this group, who a lot of people had as a top 5 player in this draft, and Derek Brown to clog the middle. Then you get Yetur Gross-Matos, who a lot of people thought was a first-round talent. They take him high in the second round to go on the opposite side of Brian Burns. They get one of my favorite safeties in Jeremy Chin to roam around. I basically said that if you're looking for a poor man's Isaiah Simmons, it could be Jeremy Chin. They got basically all the same measurables. He's just a little bit less weight, same height, like same arm length, same speed. They both hit. They can run. They can cover. They can do whatever. So they'll be able to use Jeremy Chin kind of like I think the Cardinals are going to be able to utilize Isaiah Simmons. They get a corner in Troy Pride from Notre Dame. I really, really like that they basically said, look, I understand our defense is fucked up. Our offense is all right. We'll be able to make it work.
And so they're bringing in an offensive-minded guy in their coach. And like you said, they've got weapons. Their defense was, I think, 29th in points allowed last year.
They got Joe Brady, too, right? The old offense coordinator from LSU who just took them all the way to
They got Joe Brady and Matt Rule,
so now they got 2
offensive guys.
So that's why I think they believe they're going to be fine on offense. We just really need to address this defense. So
Absolutely.
I am all for what they did.
All right. We didn't even talk about the number 1 pick in Joe Burrow going to Cincinnati.
I think he's been talked about so much.
I agree, but I really like them getting T. Higgins in the second round. I thought another guy to just throw the ball to. I like T. Higgins a lot. I think he's a guy that can go up and get the ball. I think he's really similar to A.J. Green. He's not obviously as good as A.J. Green coming out, but again, then you get Logan Wilson in the third round, who I thought is a pretty good linebacker. He's good size, good speed. Didn't play with a lot of people.
Gaither.
Say that again.
So's Akeem Davis Gaither, the linebacker from Appalachian State, who can fly and go sideline to sideline. So then I think people forget that they spent a first-round pick on Jonah Williams last year who didn't play at all. So they get basically another first-round pick at tackle to come help Joe Burrow as well this year.
Yeah, so I liked what the Browns are doing. Early thoughts on Bengals. I actually like the Browns draft too. I think getting Jedrick Wills at 8, and they also got Grant Delpit in the second round. If Grant Delpit plays like he did as a sophomore, rather than opposed to his junior year, you got a steal there in the second round.
I like the 2 players, Harrison Bryant and Donovan Peoples-Jones, they got, but I just feel bad for them because I think they went to a horrible spot for them. They already have 2 good wide receivers. They already have 2 good tight ends that they just brought in Hooper in free agency and still had Njoku.
I mean, like I said, we don't know if Jarvis Landry is going to be playing week 1 with that hip surgery. So getting Donovan Peoples-Jones in the 6th round, I thought it was a good value for him there.
Oh, I agree. It's absolute good value. I'll say Jarvis stays healthy. I don't think he's going to see many balls thrown his way.
Yeah.
Same with Harrison Bryant.
Could be true. Early thoughts on rookie of the years, offensive and defensive, Jay?
I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a really good chance to be offensive rookie of the year. We didn't talk about him because he just went to a perfect place. They need a running back like him. I think he's going to catch a lot of balls, and I think he's going to have a lot of carries, go for a lot of yards. So just the numbers that Kansas City puts up, I feel like he's going to have a very good chance to be the offensive rookie of the year because I think outside of Joe Burrow, a lot of these quarterbacks aren't going to be starting week 1, and that includes Tua.
Agreed.
I think they're going to sit him for a little while, and especially the other 2. Hurts is definitely going to sit. Eason's definitely going to sit. Fromm ain't playing. Fromm fucking – I don't know why the Buffalo Bills took Fromm.
I didn't
Maybe
understand
the worst
that at
place
all.
he could have went.
When he just kept it was like they showed him every 5 minutes like why he wasn't drafted. I just didn't think he was just flat out any good. I think he's a career backup, third string type quarterback, and if he comes into the game, you're kind of fucked because I don't think he can even lead you to a victory. So I was just confused why he got picked. I think CeeDee Lamb has a really good chance to win Offensive Rookie of the Year because Dallas likes to throw the ball a lot. I mean, Dak led the league or was second in the leagues behind Jameis in yards last year, so they throw it all over the yard. And you guys also got Amari Cooper and Zeke Elliott to take the pressure off you there. So CeeDee Lamb's a guy I think has a really good chance to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'd say probably Chase Young for Defensive Rookie of the Year, just because I think he was just flat out the best player in the draft. And I mean,
I think he's going to have a situation very similar to Nick Bosa last year.
You're going up to a loaded front where
same that Nick Bosa did. Nick Bosa went to an already good defensive line, and he didn't get as many double teams because they had to double other players. And Chase Young's just going to do his thing and transfer over from what he was doing at Ohio State.
Absolutely.
I think he's going to get a lot of sacks.
Be a dominant player and just do his thing. what he's
So
been
those
doing
would probably be my
entire
two
life.
picks for offense and defensive rookie
I'll go
of the year.
CeeDee Lamb, but I'll go. We'll share Chase Young for defensive
Okay.
rookie of the year because I think that's might be the easiest pick to me for defense. But yeah, all in all, man, it was a good draft. It was good to see some sports. It was fun. Hopefully, the season starts on time.
I hope so. They should be releasing the schedule soon.
Yeah, I mean, there were just talks yesterday of them shortening the season. They might cancel the Pro Bowl, cancel bye weeks, try and get the season done, speed up the Super Bowl, move it up a little bit. So we'll see what happens. But if you don't have anything else, Jay, we can get out of here. As always, subscribe to the Unwanted Opinions podcast anywhere you get them. Also, check us out on YouTube as well. Leave a rating, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You can contact us, unwantedopinionspodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Unwanted Opinions with Nick and Jay. DMs are wide open. Ask us questions, comments, whatever. Man, we're here.
I like it. Until next time.
Until next time.